Welcome back out on the mushroom trail. It is another just beautiful spring day, and I'm thrilled to be back out here in the burn with my buddy, just west of the Cascades here at low elevation. We're starting out in the exact same forest that we visited a couple weeks back, and right out the door, we're seeing plenty of small little burn morels beginning to poke their head up through the forest floor. Certainly a good sign, but to be honest, really these small ones are not what we're after today. We're hoping to venture down to even lower elevation, down to a floodplain that we visited recently. And we're hoping that, given the 2 weeks that have passed since we were last out there, they've gotten lots of rain. They've had plenty of opportunity to really come alive and do what they do best, grow into big flushes. So we're going to beeline down there as we hike through this slightly higher elevation forest that's more dominated by coniferous trees. We'll certainly keep our eyes peeled for these burn morels, and anything of substantial size we'll certainly throw in the basket. But we're going to head down there. Thanks so much for joining us out here. Remember, if you're liking these videos, hit the like button, subscribe, stay tuned. Let's jump in. Let's see what we see. This guy hiding just under this tree. Beauty. So take a look at this base where I just cut this morel. You can see all this folding in here. We've got that folding of the stipe, and it's got a lot of heft to it. I believe that that's a signature of Morchella exuberans, displaying that kind of folding and layering in the stipe, whereas some of these other ones just kind of have a hollow stipe all the way straight through to the cap, and this one has excessive folding and twisting and turning back on itself. So interesting to see. So moving just up along this log, still in the burn here, looking for morels. We've got a bunch of bracken ferns coming to life out here. Beautiful views, mountains out through the trees. Down on this burnt out decaying log, we've got a familiar sight, but it looks quite a bit different. Take a look at this. At this young stage and in this condition, it's got almost a funnel look to it. This is one that we featured in videos past. This is what's commonly referred to as the Pinewood Gingertail, Xeromphalina campanella. And you see these nice decurrent gills. We've got a darkened base at the stipe here. We've got, if we look up top, we've got some slight striations, little kind of belly button looking indentation that I think eventually this is likely gonna flatten and round out a little bit. But right now, interesting to see that funnel shape here on these Xeromphalina. Cool to see. So check this out. Interesting to spot this here on the forest floor. This is actually an eagle feather. And curiously enough, it's actually illegal to remove these from the forest. But yet, we can fill a 5-gallon bucket full of burn morels. Seems like an alright deal to me. Interesting to see. So we just moved down this rather steep slope and we're coming up on the floodplain. It's just a little ways off here, so we'll get an opportunity to test our theory, see if we get lucky. Either way, it's beautiful down here. So moving just up here, look what we've got along this game trail. Quite the flush of burn morels. Beautiful to look at. We can see in this light, they've got an almost greenish little hue. You can see them all throughout this area. As I look up this slope, I see lots more popping out. Should be fun to take a closer look. So one thing that I'm noticing with this large flush, to be honest, I probably wouldn't have noticed it if it weren't for all these little gnats or insects hovering about. And so, super interesting to see. If you're out here hunting morels, that's one thing that you can really kind of just have an awareness of and key in on, is if you do see little swarms of insects, maybe pause and really investigate, because some of these too are actually coming up under maple leaves, and they would otherwise be quite difficult to spot, you know, but you get your one flag, which might be really highlighted by these gnats, and you start to look around, you just start to see them everywhere. So just figured I'd pause to mention that if you're out hunting morels, don't forget about the role that these insects potentially play, giving their hiding places away. Cool to see. So as we're searching the burn area here, we're noticing all types of pyrophilous fungi, little cup fungi that are showing up with them. But there's one species in particular that seems to be, at least for now, our key indicator. And these are these really kind of small, bright orange kind of micro cups. I wish I knew the exact species of this. I really am not sure exactly which ascomycete or cup fungus we're looking at. If you have an idea what this is, or you're looking at this video and you say, I know exactly what that is, leave me a comment, let me know. That sounds to be, though, it seems like that's showing up most frequently, at least in this burn, with the morels that we are finding. So good thing to keep your eyes trained on and to really kind of stay glued to the ground looking for those bright orange, small little cup fungi. Interesting to note. So we just started really cluing in to the insects. And take a look here. So we're down in a floodplain. It's actually surprisingly sort of muddy, moist soil. Seems like it would be perhaps a little too muddy when I was first looking at it. But now that we're cluing into these insects, they're really starting to jump out. And again, we see these bright orange, small little ascomycetes popping out. But really, our biggest indicator right now, with the sun shining the way it is looking for a gnat or two and letting them lead us to these guys. Beautiful. These ones have a little bit of that green color to it. Sometimes they're called greenies or pickles. Super cool to see. So we'll see what else these gnats lead us to. But look at that. Just beautiful. So just continuing to search down here in the floodplain, and boy, this is a different ball game altogether down here in the lowlands. Look at all this leaf litter, but look at this. So my buddy just spotted what we call a flag. So one huge pronounced morel in all its splendor, and you see its friend back there. And what these flags do is they encourage you to look around. Look up there. And if I pan over this way, we were quite pleased to discover these guys. So excited to look even more closely in this area. But again, we've got those really small orange ascomycetes. This all happening under Bigleaf Maple this time. And again, you see one, you pause, you look around, and you're liable to find a lot more. Super excited to see these guys. So we just cleaned up, literally 5 feet away at that Bigleaf Maple. Continued to move through the forest. And these flushes that we're getting into right now are absolutely insane. It's kind of tough to not get too excited about all this. Having trouble keeping myself from smiling just looking at all this. Everywhere you look. And these are exactly what we're after. These guys, talk about some weight. These all have some size and stature. And there seems to be no end in sight. So I'd say we're in the right spot. Happy to be stumbling across this. If you're checking out some burns this weekend or in the weeks to come, I would encourage you to seek out those floodplains and those lower elevations where you know it's just a few degrees warmer. That's definitely where we're having our best luck. This is making our trip quite enjoyable. So we're gonna get to it, start harvesting these guys, but just wanted to get a quick shot of what we're getting into. Hopefully there's lots more of this to come. Not bad. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Wow, look at that. Not bad at all. And boy, we're really back into them again. Look at these guys. Some of the biggest ones we've seen. Got a different look to it too. Different look to this burn morel. These might be the grays. I think they are. Have to investigate a little more closely here. But I think these are the Morchella tomentosa. All right, so check these out. So these are what we're really after. I believe that what we're looking at here are what are commonly referred to as the grays, Morchella tomentosa. And what you'll notice about these, they've got this dark, kind of grayish cap. And they're a little tomentose that they start to change their look as they age and get older. But you can see this is a much different look than some of those other morels that we were just finding. And if I pan over here, you can see on these younger ones, you see this really pronounced, quite darker base or stipe here. So super cool to see, and you can see that that's kind of like a little furry or hairy cap. These are what we're really after, and you can see not really much of a shortage of them right here. So we're just thrilled to come across these. Awesome to see. And look at this, dude. Look at these grays. Those guys are monsters. I got some smaller ones that are not so small compared to these hand grenades over here though. Looking small, just incredible. Can't believe it. So check this out. This really shows off that dark kind of furry stipe of the Morchella tomentosa. Just beautiful. And they are everywhere down here. Awesome to see. So underneath more big leaf, this is getting to be the standard. It's a standard that we're liking. Look up here. Look at all those. Awesome to see. So I just shouted over to my buddy, but I buffered it with the statement that it's not what we're getting used to though, because we've only got a couple, but still fine looking morels, really good size. Boy, they're really out, and they seem to be liking the maples. Just up here, basking in the sun, big old garter snake doing his thing. Wow, pretty good size for this early in the year to be seeing him out here. Maybe he's looking for morels too. Kind of doubt it, but you never know. And hard for me to pause from harvesting all these burn morels to focus on anything else. But I figured I'd just pause real quick, point this guy out. Got a beautiful example of a West Coast Reishi, Ganoderma oregonense. This guy obviously far past its prime, so when this thing is fresh, this will be a bright orange, yellow, red color. Sort of looks a little bit like candy corn. Right now this is just kind of firm and all dried out. So this would be from last late summer, early fall. One of my absolute favorite mushrooms to harvest. So these will oftentimes have this little alien arm that they grow from. Highly medicinal. Similar related species in China have been used for literally thousands of years. And this is one that I consume virtually every night in the form of a decoction. Sometimes a little turkey tail added to it. So super cool to see. This is growing off of what I believe is fallen hemlock, which is what I tend to see these on most frequently. So cool to see. So worth noting that, you know, we're really getting into the morels right now. Notice these ones. This is just an example. I figured I'd throw it up. You know, reasonable size morel, but obviously way too far gone. So this is something that, you know, still cool to see. Lets you know you're in the right habitat and everything, but not even touching those guys. And, you know, generally speaking, when you get a little oranging on that stipe and, you know, a little too much bug activity, those gnats can be a good indicator of where some fresh ones may be, but they've done a little too much work on these guys. So obviously gonna leave these, but just wanted to throw that up. That can still be a good signpost, something to keep an eye peeled for. It still helps to train that search image. So cool to see. So just down here, got a couple lone morels standing proud here. Cool to see. Beautiful little flush. And just up here, see another really cool one. So this is a Peziza cup. I believe it's Peziza varia. And I've been seeing a lot of these down here in this floodplain. You might recall from a couple videos back, I used this one to demonstrate the tendency of a lot of these ascomycetes to release spores when exposed to wind or pressure. Let's see if we can capture that again here. I'm going to give this a little breath of air to mimic that breeze. Let's see if we can get it to do its thing. No dice. Looks like it might be a little past its prime, maybe beyond the time where it's sporulating and giving off spores. I'll try it one more time. Nothing. So if you want to see that, you'll have to look at that video a couple weeks prior. This thing was really in rare form, doing its thing, but still very cool to see out here. I believe that one of the names, common names for that, is the Palomino Cup. So interesting to see. So I just harvested a couple of morels just over there, and I showed you these Peziza cups. And just on the other side of this log, we've got prime example of the grays, these Morchella tomentosa. Just beautiful. If you look at the stipe on these, notice that it's this dark, furry, just kind of almost has a velvety feel to it. These are really awesome mushrooms that seem to be out doing their thing right now. So we're happy to be stumbling into some of these. We're seeing plenty of the Morchella exuberans, eximia, sextelata. Those can be difficult to differentiate, but these ones stand out like a sore thumb. And very cool to see. I see a couple more down the log. So I'm gonna go ahead and harvest a few more of these and keep my eyes peeled for more to come. Not bad. So just when we think it can't get any better, we're getting into more and more just massive flushes, this time under cottonwood. And you know, as I kind of pan around, you see a couple here, but check this out. Look at the size of that guy. Unreal. We keep thinking we found the biggest one of the day, and then something like this reveals itself. That's really something. Prime. Feel like we're hitting these at just the right time. I know we've got some colder nights in the forecast here, but seems like the moisture has really done this forest well over the course of the last week. We've got higher lows and plenty of moisture, plenty of rain, so it's treating us well out here. And they just keep going. Unreal how many we're getting out here today. Definitely filling the bucket. And look at that. I mean, not bad, right? What a sight to behold. Beauties. So just under a cottonwood here, look what I bumped into. So we've been primarily coming across huge flushes of burn morels, but this to me looks to be a flush of naturals. Some blonde morels here. Awesome to see, definitely different from what we've been encountering earlier in the day. So cool to be able to mix it up. We're finding several different species of morels out here today. And it's really been quite the pleasure. Look at that, blonde color, bleach white stipe, some big boys. Beautiful to see. So we're just revisiting a patch of morels, burn morels that we hit a couple weeks ago, and it was flush with all kinds of new ones. But look at this. So these are Peziza cups that I admired or looked at last week. A lot were growing on this log that I'm sitting on now. But this is easily the biggest Peziza cup I've ever seen. I could fit several in my hand in here. Just insane. I didn't know they grew them this big. So quite the specimen. Just wanted to pause to point that out. I believe that this is Peziza varia, Palomino Cup. Boy, look at that. Such a stunner. Again, just for scale, look at that. Unreal. We'll see if we can get it to do its thing here. Might be a little past its sporulation time, but why not give it a try? Oh, there it is. Incredible. Let's give it one more whirl, just see if we can get it to perform once more. Such a beauty. Unreal. Not what we're looking for, but boy, I'd stop to admire this any day of the week. Just incredible. And after finding some of those naturals, we kind of wandered off into a bit of an alder thicket. We got some horsetail, you know, the equisetum here. An interesting plant, super rich in silica, but one that's really catching my eye down here in this alder thicket is this guy right here. Cool to see. This is the wild strawberry. I'm sure several of you recognize this. Looks pretty similar. The strawberries grown in your garden. Super cool to see out here. And just to know that in a short time, these are going to be fruiting out down here in this alder thicket in the floodplain. So cool to see, and it's literally all over, just carpeting this floor in here. And like I said, we're just on the edge of the burn, so all that stuff over there burned. All this stuff over here did not. So probably venture back into the burn, but we're just kind of exploring and checking out the perimeter of this place to see what we see. All throughout the burn here, on some different hardwood species, so from cottonwood to vine maple, even on an alder, I'm seeing this one. So this is one that we featured at length in videos past. This is what's commonly referred to as the split gill mushroom, Schizophyllum commune. You can see where it gets its name. As I look underneath, you see that really unique split gill structure. You can also see that very kind of hairy cap on this. You can really see it from that angle. So this one has been used for thousands of years, especially in Asia and different parts of the world. A lot of indigenous communities too, especially in places like Indonesia, would commonly utilize this as not just a medicine, but also a food source. So, you know, I was talking to someone recently who said back in China, they would eat this routinely, and they'll oftentimes, you know, take it through an extensive boiling process to get it to the right texture and form that they want to utilize in their dishes. So kind of interesting to see. I love seeing this one, and it's one of those ones that it's easy to overlook out here or to not appreciate. But again, I'd encourage you, if you haven't seen the video past where I discussed this one at length, I'd encourage you to go back, take a look, see what you think about this one. This is just a relatively small fruiting, but it's really in abundance, especially in the vine maple. So I just figured I'd pause to point that out. Cool to see. And right now I'm just in an area where we're actually not finding much. This is a more mature forest. Looks like it had a much hotter burn. We see the burn marks going up, these older growth Doug firs to higher heights, and not sure exactly why, but we're not seeing a whole lot of fruiting down here. It might just be too mature of a forest or maybe burned too hot. But I'm seeing this stuff all over the place. And I see more over here. This is a really cool lichen that I kind of threw up on the screen just briefly in a photo last week. The one that I had last week was not quite as dried out as this, so it was a little more lush, a little more green. But this is what's known as tree lungwort, Lobaria pulmonaria. Look at that, just beautiful. So this up on the top is the algae side. We've got a fungal kind of core or body, and then we've also got cyanobacteria involved in this process. And this particular lichen has a really interesting history to it. So it's been used for a lot of kind of, respiratory ailments. This actual tissue, or what this looks like, is likened to lung tissue, right? So the age-old kind of approach to whatever something looks like, it was likely good to treat. I believe that line of logic is commonly referred to as the doctrine of signatures. But this was also used in the 17th and 18th centuries in European and Siberian monasteries to brew beer. So super interesting lichen out here that grows way up in the canopy of old growth trees, as well as on younger trees down by the river shore. But super cool to see out here. So I'm just back on the home front here, and I wanted to run through a couple quick things just to give you all a chance to get a good close look at today's catch, and also to talk about some of the different species that we encountered in a little bit more detail. So you'll notice that a lot of these have quite a different look from one another. And when we look at this one on the far left, so these are the ones that we found under cottonwoods. So you'll notice this has a much different look. This is what we refer to as a blonde. And you can see these light ridges. We've got a little bit of a reddish kind of orangish staining in places, but we've got this bleach white stipe. We can see hollow all the way through. This is actually a double that kind of occurred with a couple of them kind of bound or connected or fused together. And then we've got other ones that are more standard that are just kind of big old blonde morels. That's Morchella americana. And that one is common under cottonwoods. Again, that comes out usually after the half-free morel, the Papilophylla. And that was kind of a surprise to see. So that occurred still within the burn area where we were looking down in that floodplain, but awesome to see. And then you'll notice we've got a lot of other ones. So, and several of these have a different look to them. So you'll notice that some of them have almost like a greenish hue to them. A lot of times we refer to those as greenies or even pickles. And you'll notice that the stipes on some of these look different from one another. So some of them will have this folded or chambered stipe. Let me actually see if I can find some of those. So here's a really good example of that. So on this one, this is most likely Morchella exuberans. And we can see it's got this kind of like thick, folded, layered stipe. I know I referenced that when we were out in the field, and we saw that oftentimes up on the higher slope. And you can see that like, double-walled, chambered, kind of fused, complicated stipe. That's oftentimes Morchella exuberans. Now it's worth noting that of these burn morels, there are a few different species that can be really difficult to differentiate. Those are Morchella sextelata, Morchella eximia, and Morchella exuberans. There's another one though that we can very easily differentiate. And if we look over here, these are the ones that I was probably most excited about today. So these are Morchella tomentosa. These are what are oftentimes referred to as the grays. And they've kind of got a little fuzzy thing going on with the stipe and the cap as well. And you can see that they've got a much different look than, say, these greenies over here, or the ones that have that lighter kind of color to them. So very interesting to see. We didn't find a ton of those, but we found a fair number of them. And you can see, I mean, they look quite a bit different. And you can see that darkened stipe as well as that kind of different looking cap, right? So those really dark ones down in there, those are the grays, Morchella tomentosa. So cool to see those out there. All said and done, we found or came away with over 10 pounds of morels, most of which, of course, were burn morels, some of them the blonde morels. And my buddy and I took home each right around 5 to 6 pounds. So quite a haul today, definitely a fruitful day. We had so much fun out there. And I want to reference too, so oftentimes when we go out to the burn, we'll carry these typical 5-gallon buckets, and you'll notice that what I've done is drilled out holes. And I drilled these holes all throughout the sides of the bucket and then underneath as well. And those will really help to facilitate airflow. They'll let the spores kind of do their thing so that we're spreading the spores as we're walking around with those buckets. What we found today, so it was really interesting. So, you know, we've talked about that at length. Last time that we went out, we had buckets and didn't really come close to filling them because we were getting a lot of these little small guys from the upper kind of burn. And we weren't down in the floodplain as much where we found a lot of these big ones. So today I opted for the bucket. My buddy went with a mesh bag. And one thing on final reflection that we came to realize very clearly is that those mesh bags, if you're planning on harvesting weight, a lot of times those will really bang up your morels, right? So they're not always great if you're planning on a foraging or harvesting weight. If you're going out and you're collecting some, they're totally fine. And I love the fact that they're very breathable. They allow you to spread those spores all around the forest. So no problems there. But just bear in mind that these morels can sometimes be somewhat delicate. And so, you know, just having that rigid structure of a classic kind of traditional 5-gallon bucket can really preserve the integrity of those mushrooms. And we found that to be true today for sure. So just remember, you know, it's always good to drill those holes, let those spores do their thing and increase that airflow, keep those mushrooms healthy while you're out there. But I would really recommend, if you're getting into a burn, I would recommend the bucket option. So, but I'm curious to get your all's take on that. So if you have a differing opinion or you've got experience with that and you feel like the mesh bag trumps the bucket, let me know, because I'm pretty open to different ideas. By no means is that gospel, but that's just been my experience, is that it seems like those really do the trick when it comes to keeping them just right. And I know a lot of the commercial pickers feel the same way, and they place a high value on preserving the integrity of these morels. But so beautiful to look at. I feel like I could look at these all day. What I want to reference too, what was really interesting, is these naturals. We call the ones that don't fruit due to a burn necessarily, we call those naturals. So these blondes over here, the American Blonde, these are natural morels. I think I'm going to saute some of those. They had a really nice fragrant aroma today. They smelled so fresh and good. So I might saute those as well as some of these other ones, maybe some of the grays, but then I'll also obviously dehydrate quite a few of these this evening. So super awesome day out there. Really appreciate y'all coming along for the ride. And hopefully you enjoyed being out there with us today. And if you've got a burn in your area, I'd strongly encourage you all to get out there, poke around, see what you can see. Boy, once you get that search image going, we must have harvested hundreds of morels today. It was so much fun. And once we got that search image going, it was easier and easier to pick up on them. So cool to see. We're definitely in full swing. So I'd encourage you all, get out there, have fun. And until next time, happy trails.